Good evening. We welcome you to our City Council meeting tonight. Just by way of announcement, I hope a lot of you know this, but we are having a function up at the community center tonight for the flood victims. We'd love to participate in that. We're going to cut the City Council meeting off at 7 o'clock, so we'll get all that we can get done, and at 7 o'clock we'll just, if what we don't get done, we'll continue to the next City Council meeting. So we'll move on with our invocation. I've asked Councilman Thad Segmiller if he'll offer that for us, and Councilman Garth Nyson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this evening, this opportunity we have to meet as citizens, residents of Washington City. We thank you for the blessings which we have enjoyed, the good neighbors and the good companionship we have in the city. So be with us as we continue city business the rest of our life, but clear that might be receptive to the voices of the speak to us. Thank you again for the many things thou hast given us. Great blessings which we enjoy. In Jesus' name, Jesus Christ, amen.
Please rise and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Before we move on to item 1, the approval of the agenda, I want to rearrange a few things I think will expedite this evening's activities. We'll move item 7A to right after item 5. If that's okay with the council. And after on item B and 6, we'll do items E and F. And then we'll go from there. So with those changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Maybe I missed it. Probably wasn't focusing, so we're...
Councilman Truman, item 7A,
Okay.
we'll move it right after the special event, item 5.
Okay.
And then item E and F, the public hearing for the adoption of the City Public Safety Capital Plan Impact Fee and the ordinance to adopt such, right after B on item 6.
So we'll move just items C and D down. We'll put E and F in front of them.
Yeah, that probably would have been easier stated that way. I wanted to make it real complicated for you. So.
If there's no discussion, Mayor, I'll move that we approve the agenda as has been outlined.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Nice night.
Truman,
Mayor, I don't have a problem with you rearranging the agenda, but I do have a problem when the manager informs us that the meeting's going to be cut short before you or the majority of the council knows about that. I vote nay on the agenda tonight.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right. Thank you. That's approved 4-1. Item 2, we've had a wonderful event happen in Washington City. And could I ask Arna La Femina to come on up and their parents, if you don't mind, and their principal, Staley. You want to come on up too? Just that you may or may not be aware that Arden competed in the 37th Annual Hershey Track and Field Games in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Come on up, right up here. See, we're on film now, so you have to turn that way. And Arden was the national champion in the girls 100 meter. Her time was 14.88 seconds.
that deserves a round of applause.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe, did you bring the video? Or if not, we can. Yeah, you want to, or on the website, did you want to? Okay. Did you want to say something, Burke? Or?
Step up to the mic.
Yeah, step up to the mic.
Is it easy to get to? I'm pretty fast, but Okay, we're all right. I think this will be enough, but we can encourage you to go. Arden competed here in Washington at our Riverside meet and won. She won at the Washington County meet, which is the largest Hershey's track meet in the United States. I almost think it's the hardest meet to win, well, except for the last one. And then she went on and won Southern Utah, Richfield South, and then she won Utah. Was also a part of the winning 4x100 relay team. They also won the Utah Championship from down here, and from Riverside. All those kids came from our school, right, Arden? Everybody on that team. And then she went on to the nationals, being the fastest girl in 8 states, including Northern and Southern California, Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, just to make there. And then she won the 100 meters. From what I know, really the first person from Southern Utah to win any of the sprint events. And it's a beautiful thing. She's a beautiful runner. She's got a great potential, a great future. She's also a gymnast and a wonderful family. So I just think she's a great representative of our community, and I wanted you guys to let her know. I mean, she's a pretty big deal.
Yeah,
all right.
That's a big deal for Washington City. We presented Arden with a little certificate. She has that. We're going to put this in our city office here on the plaque, and we did dedicate that day as the Arden La Femina Day. I did a proclamation for that, and we made her some. I didn't, but brother Burke made her a little plaque with some golden shoes, and Mom and Dad, you should be very proud, and we're glad to have you folks in Washington City. So thank you. And if you want to say anything, now's the time. Yeah, I bet it was. Sure. Yeah. Oh, no. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming tonight. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm going to abstain from 6B, just to avoid the appearance of impropriety. I actually represent Justin Schock in a legal matter, and so I want to make sure there's no issue about that.
Okay, thank you, so noted. Any others? Item 4, consent agenda, approval of the minutes, consideration to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 8/12/14 and 8/13/14.
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes from city council meetings of 8/12, 8/13.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Well, we can approve the minutes, and then we'll go to that one. We'll approve the minutes. I have a motion.
I'll make the second on the motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Turek, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Staley, aye.
Newman, aye.
Dyson, aye.
Thank you. We'll continue on the consent agenda to the subdivision name changes. We'll go through all 4 of those, if that's okay and appropriate. Consideration to approve a subdivision name change from the Escapes at Sunrise Estates to the Estates at Green Springs, located approximately 1300 West, 1700 North, applicant Brennan Holdings. Consideration, item B, consideration to approve subdivision name change for a portion of the Escapes at Sunrise Residence to the Reserve at Green Springs, located approximately 1200 West, 1700 North, same applicant. Item C, consideration to approve a subdivision name change for a portion of the Escapes at Sunrise Residence to the Terraces at Green Springs, located approximately 1200 west, 1700 north, same applicant. Consideration to approve a subdivision name change from the Escapes at Sunrise Villas to the Villas at Green Springs, located at approximately 1000 west, 1900 north, applicant Brennan Holdings. Any discussion on those items? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I might have some discussion, Mayor.
Okay.
Seems to me like we're changing the same name 4 times. Do we have any specificity as to what's being changed to what?
I know Mr. Raines is here. Just from memory, I know that this was the at least 3 separate subdivisions up there that in Green Springs. I remember we approved all these separate. I'm not sure why there's 4 though. Are we breaking one of them out?
Yeah, State, if you read the report, when this pops up here at the we'll just start over here. The estates at Green Springs used to be formerly known as the Escapes at Sunrise Estates. So that had its own name. It was a standalone subdivision. The villas up here used to be, referred to as formerly the Escapes at Sunrise Villas. These 2 pieces used to be referred to as the Escapes Sunrise Residences. So this one just changed the name because the name actually went with Henry Walker was going to be the one developing this. That was kind of their name. They're not developing anymore, so Brennan Holdings has come back and changing these names. And what they did was took the the residence here and broke it in half, just split it by Concord Drive and created a name called the Terraces and the Reserve. So in essence, there wasn't one subdivision. There used to be 3 subdivisions. And they're still kind of that way. They just broke the middle one up and divided it by Concord. To put it simply, this is it.
Sunrise and adding Green Spring.
That's right. The Escapes at Sunrise is now gone. The rest of the names are still there, but it's at Green Springs instead. So a little confusing yet. When you look at it in this map, it kind of takes care of, I think, all the confusion. So everything else stays the same. All the conditions, the lots are the same, the design is the same, everything's the same of what we approved on those preliminary plats. It's just name change and a little bit of that dividing the middle one up because the whole area was already approved and we're just splitting it on each side of Concord.
Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I'll make the motion that we approve the subdivision name changes as listed in the agenda, namely changing the name of the Escapes at Sunrise Estates to be the Estates at Green Springs, the Escapes at Sunrise Residence to be the Reserve at Green Springs, the Escapes at Sunrise Residence to be the Terraces at Green Springs, and lastly, the Escapes at Sunrise Villas to be the Villas at Green Springs.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second.
Nice and I.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Item 5, special event. Consideration to approve a special event application to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention for their Out of Darkness annual walk at Highland Park, September 27th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Applicant Tina Hender, board member of Utah chapter. Come on up, Tina.
Good evening. We've had this walk here at the park for 2 years running. This would be our 3rd year. It's a quiet, somber walk where we just walk to memorialize and honor our loved ones that we've lost to suicide.
Anything with public safety? We're okay? Any other questions or comments, gentlemen? Okay.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve the special event for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention called the Out of Darkness Annual Walk held at Highland Park, September 27th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Staley, aye.
Truman, aye.
Nice and I.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, Tina. Item 7A, ordinances, continuation of a consideration to approve an ordinance adopting the Washington City Stormwater Capital Facilities Master Plan. Mike Shaw. Or Lester Dolphin.
Mayor, Council, this has been before you guys several different times. We had some concerns that were raised from SUBA. We've had a extensive back and forth with their attorney. We had a phone call with them earlier this week to make sure that the changes that we made were in line with what they were requesting. More than anything, it was a rearrangement to more closely follow verbatim state statute, reflect the terminology identical, that kind of stuff. Consequently, the document that is before you, Jonathan Anderson, their legal counsel, was favorable of it. Like I said, we had an extensive conversation with him, but other than that, all of the technical data remains the same, and where we're currently at is just in hopes of adoption for it.
Is this the one where we had to go ahead and put the language in that we're doing it by averaging the amount
Yes.
of the fee throughout the valley, and we had to change the language to make
Yes.
certain that was in the plan?
And that correction is shown on page 29 of the document. And that's reflective of a citywide impact fee.
Sorry, it reflects the ordinance that's on the agenda tonight also.
Correct. I believe that both the ordinances that are in the agenda, we've got an ordinance to go either way. So whichever way you guys choose to go is the ordinance that'll be adopted.
At the mercy of my iPad, which froze up, so it's only 180 page document.
I guess while you're scrolling through that, let me ask our city attorney, Mr. Starkey. I know we got this letter from Snow, Jensen, and Priest today on this, about their development agreement and how that fits into the impact fees. Can you bring us up to speed on that? Do we have an issue or concern there?
Well, yeah, well, I got this the same time you guys did too. So in terms of applying it to some of their concerns, I'm not so sure either way how it would affect them. If the agreement says what it says, I don't think by approving the ordinance it would impact what the status would be anyway.
I guess that's my impression as I read it. They're basically saying whether our ordinance is going to apply to them or not apply to them. So it's not so much don't adopt the ordinance, whether it's going to apply once it's adopted.
Which I think is separate from approving the ordinance itself. I personally don't see how continuing it would make a difference. It's either going to apply or it's not going to apply. And there had been some discussions already about how that impacts what they have either planned or got in place, whether that already they get credit for that in some capacity or not. I don't think it'll affect this here because it will have, either they put them in and it applies already or it doesn't.
Is the issue then that if we had broken out, or if we broke out all of the 7 drainage basins, that they would have had a lot of their PCD in this airport area and would have had a substantially lower impact fee?
I'm not sure.
Jeff, is that what their issue is?
Is that what you've heard?
I'm not completely sure of what their
If you look
issue
at the
is.
map, I would
this is
guess
the
that
first
a
I've
large
heard of it
portion
as
of their development would actually been in that drainage basin, and they would have stood to have paid a lot lower impact fee had we separated all 7 as opposed to averaging all 7 citywide, which it sounds like most cities in Utah do, and it sounds like from our discussion last week the council was most comfortable with.
Yeah, I agree. That's what it sounded like where the council might have been leaning on that one, and I agree. So to the extent that we're not taking the zonal impacts of those, I don't think the same issue is going to be there. If it's going to be in a cross-border, which is what we already have anyway, which is already the current application of it. So I have a hard time answering for them because I'm not sure necessarily what
Well,
they're,
if the council does move forward and approve that, it is a reduction overall citywide in the stormwater impact fee.
right.
But the study does break those down by geographic area, but I just don't, at least me personally, I couldn't come to a conclusion that was logical for me to break out each of those areas citywide, because I feel like the city is the geographical area, and we're all kind of in this together on stormwater, as we're seeing.
Well, yeah, and again, I think we've seen that from the last comments we've had also, and that is, if you happen to own land in an area in which your impact fee would have dropped, you're probably favoring the zonal impact fees. If not, you're probably against that zonal impact fee, because it's going to be more, if it goes in the direction that some of the discussion has been, it'll apply to everybody equally. So I'm not sure any of their concerns are going to stop us from approving what's already been had for discussions on this. And certainly not a couple hours before the public hearing on it or the decision on it makes it difficult to even apply that. But
I'm not sure I understand why they want us to postpone it. What would we, if we postponed it tonight based on this letter, what are we postponing it for?
I didn't understand, I'll be honest with you. I think that was part of the question, that was, how would postponing it make any difference irrespective of which way it goes? I'm not sure it does.
Yeah, I think I agree. Because it's basically whatever happens, whether it applies to them or whether they get some special exemption.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what.
Exactly. And irrespective of which one is which approach is taken, it is what it is under the agreement anyway. So, and maybe somebody came from their office that wants, council may want to ask you some questions to see if you can explain that aspect of it also.
Hi, Zach Renstrom with Bush and Gudgel Engineering. I didn't write the letter or draft it, but I'm the engineer that's kind of been working on the project, and so we've been kind of letting this go through. But this is kind of a technical issue. And to kind of explain what's going on out there is the Stuckey Farms master plan out there. When that was originally came in with the PUD zoning, and we looked at it, we incorporated all the items from the storm drain master plan into the plan. So we have planned huge detention ponds, huge storm drain lines that incorporate a lot of drainage. And usually what happens is when a developer installs a master plan storm drain system, they get impact credit fees for that. Well, in this new plan, in Stuckey Basin, they're not showing anything. And so basically what would happen is the developer now, under this new plan, would have to go in and install in these huge detention ponds, huge storm drain lines, and still not get any storm drain impact credits where he would have got that under the old plan.
Yeah, well, right, yeah. I mean, I think your general premise is correct, and that is, if it's an improvement for the entire system, a credit is given. If it's not, it's not given. Maybe I'm missing something to the extent that how stopping or postponing this for another time would make a difference to that project.
So there's a couple ways you could look at it. Is either because this has been going through so much and we've kind of been waiting for it to go through and see how the fees came out. Carl Larson's, he's the applicant here that's handling it. I shouldn't call it an applicant, it's a citizen here. He's kind of been waiting to see how it goes out, and then obviously we realized that all this stuff was, the impact fees for his area was going to be substantially quite high with this new proposal coming forward. He's like, hey, let's stand up and say what's going on. When it was broken out in pieces, his impact fees were actually fairly low. And so he's like, I can handle that because they're a lower amount. But now that his property will be raised quite a bit, but he, under the PUD zoning, he's still going to have to install that storm drain system, but he won't get the credits for it. Under the old plan, he would. So council could easily come along and just say, well, if Stuckey Farms Basin, I guess it's the airport basin now, installs all this infrastructure in there, they should get some type of credit for it, where before they would have, but on the new plan it wouldn't, because all that item has been removed from the master plan because they know that he's going to install it.
But isn't that spelled out under the development agreement?
Well, in the development agreement, it's vague, and I'll even say that. It reads through and says that he'll install that, but it doesn't specifically address impact credit fees.
So it doesn't talk about credits on that?
No, and the staff, in the first two phases, they didn't charge impact fees, but on this last phase, staff came back and said, no, we believe that impact fees should be imposed on this. And there's some things going on there with the drainage and how it was being retained and stuff like that. But they've basically taken the position now, no impact fees should be charged on this. And so if the council comes back and says, no, he should, yeah, that was all handled in the development agreement. It's quite a lengthy development agreement, that he should get credits for it, then it should be a problem.
Yeah. And that's usually where those will handle. That's why I think the council was saying that whether we go ahead and pass or change that impact fee tonight shouldn't really have any impact on your development. It's based, because your development is going to be based on that development agreement. So that may be where the discussion needs to take place.
The way I understand the history where we've been is the impact fee under the proposal that council has preferred in prior meetings is actually reducing for everybody. But there had been a proposal that would basically divide it up by basin, which would have been a substantial reduction for some zones and a substantial increase for others.
Yes.
And so the council preferred the methodology of looking at the city as a whole, not as on a per basin measure. But still, it's a reduction from any impact fees that would have been charged prior.
So with him, and he can come up and speak for himself, but with him, in the old plan, so if the city council just says we're not doing anything, and he goes and installs that big, 60-inch storm drain pipe, then he was going to get credits for that.
Are you saying the old stormwater master plan?
The old storm master plan. The new one, that 60-inch pipe isn't shown in there, but in the PUD zoning, it's saying there's a 60-inch pipe. So staff's going to come back, and they're going to say, hey, the PUD zoning says you have to have the 60-inch pipe, but it's not in our master plan anymore, so we're not going to give you impact credits fees for that. Okay. And so he just wants to be fair. If he's going to have to go and install that big pipe, and he has some huge detention ponds planned on his property, if he's going to do all that, then he should either get credits for it, or
he wants that infrastructure reflected in the current, the proposed master plan.
Well, and I guess that's my question for staff. Is the improvements that he's doing in Stookie Farms, are those improvements included in this master plan? Were they included in the study, and is that the reason why that area was so much lower?
Yes, that is included in the study. That's their master plan based on their PCD development. And where some of the confusion come from originally is the original PCD, the representation that was made for phases 1 and 2. Overall, this PCD was going to be full retention. They had no intentions of discharging any water to us. When they completed the master plan, it became abundantly clear to them that they had to discharge water to us. That was the reason that it went from a scenario where the impact fees weren't charged to where they were charged, is because now we have to accept that discharge.
So the original development agreement talked about a retention?
Yes, it was going to be full retention.
Not detain and discharge?
That was the representation originally.
So it sounds to me like staff and the developer needs to work together and bring it to council with some sort of resolution.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of that in the zonal in the zonal approach, that's brought into the equation. In the overall approach, it gets muted. Is what it boils down to.
So in the zonal approach, they would have got credit for putting that piping in because that was part of the facilities that's already in place, and so the fees are less out there.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the credit is that their rate calculates so low. Yeah, because they're not counting those facilities. What staff's position is to the impact fee eligibility of those improvements? Are those credit eligible improvements?
That's something that we'd have to dive into and really take a look at and see. If they had not proposed to have done all them improvements as part of their PCD approval, we would have been looking at that and saying, okay, we need a master plan for this scenario as well, and figure out what to do with it. Consequently, it would have added additional dollars to the overall bottom line for additional improvements that would have occurred, and with a single impact fee scenario, that would have been spread over the entire city. The zonal impact fee scenario, it wouldn't. So it's.
So
you just told me that on the zonal, the rate plummeted because we did take those into account. But in the citywide, we don't take those into account?
No, it's taken into account the same way. But now that improvement is spread out over the entire city and the needs of the entire city,
so they don't get
instead of just the needs of the area.
Is that zone almost entirely that PCD? The airport zone,
yeah,
I think we refer to it.
Is that
basically
as well
just
as
the Stookie Farms
as well as an area south that kind of encompasses the airport a little bit and a little bit to the east, but it's all within that same
majority
basic-
is there.
Yeah, general area right there.
If we're gonna have the new development going in, talking about right next door to all the structures. Like, I can understand now why you're saying for delay, because if we approve this and then decide that we're gonna revamp, we'd have to have a higher fee for everybody in order to give you the credit for what's in, to make it spread throughout the city. If I understand it correctly.
So does the capital facilities plan itself change then? So we have different improvements going reflected in the capital facilities plan, and therefore the impact fees, if it's on the zonal versus the across the board?
It drops right back to the zonal perspective. If you're looking at only this zone of area needs these improvements, and that's all we're charging for. And then this zone needs 10 times that improvements, and that's all we're charging that zone for. But if you take them and combine them and say we're going to spread this equally, then the savings and the expense get spread equally as well. Correct.
It's a difference of $753 per acre to the average $4,214 per acre.
Still not sure I understand how they.
That zone to the spread overall.
Still not sure how they lose anything if they get impact fee credit for those improvements.
We won't.
That's what I'm not sure is whether it's zonal or not. If we give them the impact fee credits for the improvements, regardless of how we calculate it,
And
either
this-
they do or they don't. That's the
Well,
question.
and
And if they
that-
got
and
it in the
that's-
zonal one and they don't get it in the average one, that's what I still don't understand.
And that's what it boils down to with the PCD development agreement. When that was adopted, they were keeping all their water. They realized through the master planning process that wasn't possible. They needed to have a discharge, and that's where the issue kind of comes up. So as they master planned it and they realized, hey, we've got to have a discharge, there's nowhere to really go with it because the representation that they made to us is there was going to be none. Then they come up with these large detention basins, that kind of stuff, to get the discharge down to an amount that we could handle with our current master plan that was in place. Consequently, when we do the new master plan, that master plan is based on what is a farly more in-depth master plan that they perform than what we perform, because now they're able to drill right down to the nuts and bolts. This is what we really need to do in order to accommodate the needs.
How would this have been handled
Across
had
the
we
board.
not been in the middle of updating this master plan? So you said they moved into that third phase. They decided not to just retain, but to discharge water. And that at that point,
They were
were
going to
we
be
charging impact,
Yes.
stormwater impact
Yes.
fee? What was the discussion at that point? Because this has come to a head before now.
Right, and they've agreed, and they had full understanding. Phases 1 and 2 were on a scenario. They were still going under the impression that they were going to do full retention, not discharge. They were granted a waiver of the impact fees because we didn't need any facilities to accommodate their development. They completed their master plan between phase 2 and 3 and realized we can't keep all this water. We've got to discharge it. So on phase 3, we let them know right then your impact fees are going to be charged. We were kind of behind the 8 ball on all that. They're getting charged a building permit. They were informed from here on out that we'll be charged a plat, just like all the other subdivisions in Washington.
But we would get impact credit fees for installing the infrastructure that was supposed to be out there in the old master plan. So if we installed, this gets a little bit convoluted because Lester's right that they weren't charging any impact fees because they weren't discharging, but now they are. They pay the impact fees, but then they go install, the 60-inch pipe, and the city would come back and say, okay, yeah, this was a master plan pipe shown in our plan, so it costs $300,000 to install that pipe, so you get that $300,000 credit. Where now that pipe's not shown there, and the new plan is just saying, oh, that pipe's going to be there, but we're not going to show it in our master plan. So that's make it even more convoluted. There has been some pipes installed, and we have installed a small detention pond, but we're moving to certain phases. I mean, some of the detention ponds are going to be right here. as big as, 20 acres probably of detention ponds and substantial amounts of storm drain. So it's not just a little bit of money. We're talking like in the millions of dollars. Well, this is Carl Larson. You probably know him.
Yeah, Carl Larson. We only want to do what's fair, but bottom line, when we started the development, we started our planning back in 2004. And at that time, the city was actually going to bring a regional storm drain out to the area, which we agreed to connect to. Plus, we said that we would take care of most of our storm drainage in our lakes and, detention ponds and all of these other things. Well, and I think that Zach and Jim can verify what I'm saying now. Actually, Ince Homes came to us and wanted to do a joint venture with us clear back when construction first started out there. So we installed a 43-inch, wasn't it? Storm drain line to the very northern end of the development, because that's what we had been asked to do, so we could hook onto it at the time that the city did a line out to a certain point, and that we would participate in anything from that point on for that. And then the city changed what their plan was going to be and decided not to install that. That's been 7-8 years ago. And so what we have had to do is we have gone back to the drawing table to decide what we needed to do to alleviate that problem. Zach did a study for us all the way through the development, exactly what we needed to do. And the airport has been built since that time, and they pass through a lot of storm water to us off of the end of the runway. Now, historically, I don't think I'm not an expert. Zach and Jim and a few others are the experts here. But historically, you're able to pass through any historic storm drain that comes into your property and then out. We're not asking to do a lot. We're passing through very little, which therefore, if you look at the difference in numbers between $753 an acre and anyway, you're talking close to, we've got about 590 acres, you're talking close to $3 million, which is a substantial change. Excuse me, I thought I had that on. But anyway, we're talking a substantial difference in what we're doing, but we're still planning on retaining most of what we're doing. And Zach can speak to that better than I can. So I understand, if we weren't doing any of that, then understand. But we're spending literally millions of dollars out there on ponds and lots of acres too to take up for that. We just put in this 5-acre park to take care of things. That 5-acre park was going to be 21 lots. So you can see where it puts us in a real bind if we have to keep doing all of this plus pay the full amount that we're talking about. I understand, seems like what's fair for one is fair for all. It's very difficult if you've got a 40-acre or a 20-acre project to retain the water in a situation like that. In this one, we're using open space areas, we're putting in lakes, we've got 24 acres of lakes that we're putting in, that we're using that for, plus our fresh water to take care of.
How big's your development altogether?
592 acres. It was 690 acres, and then we sold 74 acres for the airport, for the runway protection zone, then 24 acres to the Southern Parkway. So it's not like we don't want to be good neighbors. It's not like we don't want to pay our fair share. We just don't want to have to pay for all of these facilities, do all of these facilities, and then be charged extra And in this case, we are taking care of most of our problems right on site. I don't know if you have any other questions.
So what is it, so for the stormwater impact fee, what is it that you or your development would like the city to do in terms of, I understand that maybe you would be for the zonal impact
Exactly.
fee because for your land as a whole, it works out better.
And we're still, I mean, that's still not a small amount, you know. We're
So if it
talking
goes
seven-
to the zonal impact fee, are you saying that you accept that there are no credits anymore, that you'll pay that per acre?
You know, haven't even stopped to think about it, to be honest.
To me, it
But-
seems to be it's either one or the other.
Mhm.
Either there's credits and it doesn't matter what the impact fee is because there's credits, or
And-
there's
and
not
I can-
credits and you'll pay the zonal.
Yeah, if we get credits for everything that we're doing.
But
it would
doesn't
easily-
the zonal approach, doesn't the
Excuse me.
zonal approach take into account the work that they've done and that they would do, and therefore that compensates for the credits? Is that right, Lester? I'm seeing a nod.
That's why it's so
Either way, you
That's
get
why
credit.
that's why it's so much lower.
That's the fundamental problem here, is that the current capital facilities plan you're considering today does not have any improvements in Carl's zone, because it's made the assumption that Carl's putting them all in, and he gets the benefit of it because he gets a much lower impact fee.
Yeah.
But now by taking that study and dividing it out through the city, he can't apply for credit because there's no improvements in your capital facilities plan to apply for it. That's the problem.
They're not system improvements at that point because they weren't included on that.
And that's the problem. That's why he's asking for
Well, he's
delay,
developing a
because
small city out there. I mean, that's a big. It really is. I mean, if you've looked at that master plan, it really is a small city,
but
similar
this
to
is
Coral
the-
Canyon or Sun River or any of those.
this is the fundamental problem with taking your existing study that had zones and just saying,
Bumping them back
we're going to
together.
change it. Your study doesn't justify that change. Carl's a perfect example of that. You need to look at it harder and be fair, or you're going to miss improvements that you don't have a way to fund for. And if you give Carl credit for them, you're short because they're not in the plan.
Any other questions, sir? You know, we're not.
Well, a lot is improvements in that are anticipated to be put in under a capital facilities plan. You put in those system improvements, you should get credit irrespective of whether you have any treatment or not. The difference here is simply that if we're not taking the zonal, if we're trying to lump the zonal one in, we didn't include what you've already installed as being your improvements.
And it
For that
almost seems like we have to go back and take a look at that and give credit, you know, put the cost of those improvements in and redo the cost base on that. If we're gonna do this averaging thing, that's the only fair way to do it. You know, make that a little capital, part of the capital improvement. And everybody's fee's gonna go up slightly to take
Yeah.
care of that. So.
I'm still just. How did we get on this zonal approach where it seems to me like no other cities have done this? Are we aware of any other cities that have gone this approach? That
I think we asked that question and none in Utah had it. It was some in Colorado that had done that. Yeah, we asked that question. There's nothing in Utah. But
Well, and I think from the end, from, 10, 15, 20 years, there's been anticipated, you might be, the way we do impact fees in the state of Utah, you could do that as you wanted to. This is probably the first time the application for staff struck them as being something that made more sense because they were so disparate depending on where you're at. But
So, Council Starkey, just a question, where it's become apparent that we probably need to go back and rework this particular item, would it be appropriate to vote it down and restart again so it goes back through a public process? That might be the appropriate way.
I wonder if these older projects, that maybe there ought to be a grandfather clause, you know, and then before we pass a new master plan, they're on the old master plan.
Facilities are represented in the capital facility plan. And then that kind of addresses
They would be grandfathered, but in this one they aren't. So improvements that were considered in the prior plan that we're anticipating replacing are being left out of this one. So I'm not sure just a continuance is enough. Like you mentioned, Council Turek, I think it might be time to just
vote it
down and start over.
Yeah, because if the capital, because if it looks like there's a potential of having an overall impact fee, and a chunk of that was left out, assuming that those would be all for that one project, and now we're putting them back in, yeah, I'm not really sure how you do it without doing it again, as much as that might sound like we're having to reshape the whole Yahtzee dice again.
Well,
but
we
may
kind
have
of
to.
are. I mean, that's ultimately, I mean, when
Yeah,
you take a piece of the puzzle and haven't put it in the puzzle, you just start over and rebuild the puzzle.
Yeah, and I think obviously, I don't fault the city for it. The way they had it planned based on the zoning area was correct. It worked for everybody. And then when we decided it was a citywide plan, that monkey wrench into the issue with Larson's development there. And so I think we need to be fair and have to probably go back and put that in the way it should be.
Basically, I think what we want to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is basically look at the plan that we've got, compared to the plan we've had in times past, which was a general imposition, and see where, I would say we'd want to identify where those areas were in the old plan, the capital credits would have been given, and make sure, because I agree with Councilman Truman, what we did is we kind of changed the equation, and the math was still on the other side, needed to be kind of reworked a little bit. Again, how extensive that needs to be, I don't know.
I would think if we did that, it should clear up what the ambiguity that's representative of whether or not there is a credit eligible for those type of improvements.
Yeah, I think it makes it very clear what's eligible, what's not eligible, and it isn't this he said, I think, no, you think, and
And you're right, the hard pill that'll be swallowed is more than likely you will not see a reduction in the impact.
No.
Current.
Yeah, so, yes. So it could be a vote to not do it. It could be continuous to take a look at it, but with the realization that even in the reevaluation, is that it would have to be,
well, I think
have to be
even
stuck
through the
back in
reevaluation, it should be come back through for another public hearing, because it's a total different package.
Oh, it clearly would have to come back.
And so to
more
me, it
input.
would be most important.
Suba already wanted to have some input in on it, so it'd be the public hearing when it comes back.
Yeah, that's why to me,
Right.
the appropriate thing would be to vote it down and let them start over again. So with that being
Is that a
made,
motion?
go ahead.
And a motion.
Was that your motion, Council Terry?
That would be my motion, that we deny I've lost the impact, the impact fee ordinance,
Stormwater.
for the stormwater capital facilities master plan.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Nice night.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right. Item 6, public hearings and related ordinances. Item A, public hearing for consideration to approve a zone change application Z-1408 requesting to change present zone from open space to R-1-6, single-family residential, 6,000 square foot minimum lots. Property is located approximately 4600 south, 1200 east of this Meadows at Stuckey Farms. Applicant Justin Schock. And just to note again, this is the one that Council Truman has abstained.
Thank you, Mayor. Applicant is requesting approval for a zone change of approximately 41.22 acres. This is just east of this hot subject we just got through talking about, the Stuckey Farms, the Meadows development, and there's that park you can see, and right there next on that west border. The request is to change the current zoning of open space to the proposed single-family residential 6,000 square foot minimum, or the R16 is what we refer to it at. The general plan land use designation for this particular area just got recently changed to the medium density residential, which allows for the R16, R12, or R18 zoning proposals, and that's the R16 definitely fits within that. The surrounding general plan land use designations are park to the north, medium density residential to the west, medium high residential to the south, and open space to the east. The surrounding zoning on this particular proposal is open space to the north and east, and planned community development, or PCD, which is the Stuckey Farms master plan area, to the south and west. The applicants are just wishing to rezone this property for future probably development, Staff's reviewed their zone change, has no issues with it. The Planning Commission reviewed this proposal at their August 6th, 2014 meeting, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-14-08 for the zone change request from open space to the proposed R16 zoning designation to the City Council based on the findings that you see in your report. And I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this proposal. I just will point out those 3 lines you see down on that southeast corner. That's where the southern corridor comes in, and we'll be taking part of this property, and then as it moves north, it'll bend and head off to the east.
Where's the school in relation to this piece? The proposed schools.
It's that way. It's hard to
north.
It's northwest. If you've been out to the Meadows, that development is right directly to the west there. The area to the top end of that is where the homes are. The one directly west is still under construction, so to speak. Actually, I think there's 1 or 2 homes being built in that phase 3.
Any questions for Drew?
What's the general plan designation on this property? Open space?
Medium density.
Medium density, but it's
yeah, I wouldn't let it be here
currently
tonight
zoned
if it
open
was
space, but
its zoning is open space right now.
It's general plan for medium density.
Yeah, we just did a general plan amendment
which
a couple
allows
months
for,
ago.
Remind me what size of lots? medium density?
R16, R2, and the R18. We took the R18 out of the low density and put it into the medium density here recently also. So it's those 3 zoning districts.
And the R2 is what?
R2 is something we've been using downtown.
It's where you split a lot in half.
You can have 2 residences on 1 lot.
So this is pretty much the smallest residential zoning before you get multi-housing. Is that
correct?
What's the zoning? I know there's, well, what's the density of the adjoining properties there?
Well, it's hard to tell with the PCD because it varied so much. They came in, their lots were running somewhere between 7,000 and 9,000 square feet. They came and eliminated a few, and I think so. Their average lot is maybe 8 or 9 in the Meadows.
And they've dedicated parks and
well, they didn't used to. They had to put that park in right there. Came because it's more of a water issue than I think an amenity for the neighborhood, so to speak. That was the nature behind that park, was to take water. So, but the property to the south is designated as medium high density. They'll probably have townhomes type condo things all in that area as part of the Stuckey Farms.
As part of the PCD, right?
So, as part of the PCD.
Is this right where the current road goes in? It takes a 90
that
degree
southern,
and then another
that
90
southern
degree
border right there
parallels?
is the old road you used to
Okay.
take east and west.
And then you pointed a road to the south of this.
Those 3 lines are where the proposed southern corridor will be going through. It's written. I could blow that.
Can you just draw your finger through there so I make sure I understand? Councilman Sigler's got it, but I want to make
But
sure I get
if
it.
that's kind of where you've got
So
it.
that'll cut right through that piece. That's an easement for the.
Yes, and about where you see the legal description, right there. I can't point. That's
it
where it
veers.
starts veering to the east.
Okay.
Starts going up is it called Long Valley? I can get them all mixed up.
How would the access be then short? Because that road's going to change, isn't it?
Their access is
Where are their
pretty much
access
right
points?
there, and then through the development to the south.
Again, through Stuckey Farms.
It'll be through Stuckey Farms at this. Yeah, their development will come unless something happens to the north there, which I think Stuckey Farms is going to happen a whole lot quicker. They're all their development versus anything to the north.
And our Stuckey Farms, the PCD predates me. Are those just public roads then?
Yes.
Those are all public roads, so
All
there's no
public
issue
roads.
with them accessing through.
No, we always planned on that to be that way. Is that we knew that we were going to have to probably access this piece when we talked about the PCD through Stuckey Farms development.
So would we, if this zone change were approved, would we require 2 accesses from the first phase then? Or Or one
And-
dedicated access and a temporary, or how would staff look at that?
Yeah, we might try to have maybe Stuckey Farms work with them. We'd have to look at how many homes, et cetera, and everything. But this is, they kind of, I hate to use the term always, but it's one that fits as landlocked somewhat. So we'd have to look at that and maybe see if they could work something out with Carl and Stuckey Farms to the south, and at least put in a temporary one if this development came before the townhomes did. So we'd basically have them put in a temporary access road, emergency access road.
And then the permanent access through that.
And then it would come, through the south.
In medium high density, is the R16, is that the largest lot that they can apply for? Are there larger lot sizes?
There's R18 in the
R18
medium
is
density.
in there as well.
We just barely put it in.
We shuffled those around a bit, didn't we?
We
were
did.
trying to.
So if we were to approve R16 tonight, that's a minimum lot size.
Right.
They can go a little bigger than that based on.
Well, the
vicinity,
developer, I think even in the planning commission referenced that they would not be coming in with straight 6,000 square foot lots. That's just because some of them will have to be under 8,000. That's kind of why they felt they wanted the R16. So.
That's always the way
They do. But as I look at this, and with the southern corridor, it's going to be, they're going to be bordered right on it. I hate to, again, it gets back to that point. Are we going to make somebody do 10 or 12,000 square foot lots right next to a major corridor of traffic?
And this will be an access corridor it'll.
They can't get on and off there by no means, no.
The only access is down at the ramp.
Correct.
Yeah.
Did adjacent property owners have any concerns or any thoughts?
Well, we had a particular lady that showed up at, I can't remember what lot she was. It was that second from the top, I think, or third from the top there, that happened to be walking her dog by that cul-de-sac right there and saw the posted notice on there. She had just barely moved in a couple weeks prior to, so probably the previous lot owner's one who got the notice on that. So.
And we don't have any idea of the number of lots that would go in ultimately, or the densities of those lots, or.
Well, the density is going to be stuck with. We know it's going to be a 4.5 dwelling units per acre will be the max on an R16.
Topography won't fit down any of that.
This is a pretty flat piece, but they'll have to account for detention, things like that. So depending on how they design it, if they go in again, maxing it out, it's still hard to meet. 4.5 dwelling units per acre, just even going straight, no curve in your road, but then it's just very difficult
The biggest
still.
issue that I foresee in this is going to be exactly what's been brought up already. That's access issues.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to look at secondary exits, that's what I see becoming problematic in the next step here is how is that tied together? Because it is cul-de-sac, really got one access.
Well, what I'd
on
like
the
to
other
have
side.
seen, even though it wasn't in the original, is where that cul-de-sac is, where the park. That would be, well, I guess their design on their park is a little into that now because it goes fairly deep there, but that could have been a tie over also as well. And who knows, it still could be.
Sometimes we have to be a little careful, start imposing our will upon other landowners and say you
Exactly.
have to tie into us so we can develop here.
Yeah.
That isn't too kosher either. So.
Yeah, and then there's a few examples down on the fields. Some of them are, there by Desert Meadows, it's got that awkward intersection of 2000 South, and none of those residents can get out anywhere but that intersection.
Correct.
And there's roads all around them that had been planned a little better and made sure there were some connections. So it would be a way different traffic experience.
Yeah, that becomes the biggest. That's why it probably does behoove us to allow them to work with the lot sizes a little bit, because I think there is going to be some access issues that lots are going to have to play a part of that.
Well, eventually, I'm hoping, I just asked Lester, I think the proposal is that park will become ours after it's completed and stuff. So, and that is our road currently at that cul-de-sac, so that we have a little bit of play there in case the worst case scenarios come to play.
I guess when we come to design stages, we
can talk about
Yeah.
drainage as well at that point, can't we?
I would just resolved all their issues
Should I
at
get
the
a
zoning
smile out of
stage.
Public Works on that one? Because I know they're
All right, thanks. Any other questions for Drew? This is a public hearing. Any of you that are out there that may have a comment or a question or a concern on this? Consideration? Come on up. If not,
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Turek, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Staley, aye.
Nice and I.
Item B, consideration to approve an ordinance approving zone change request, C-1408, changing present zone from open space to R-16, single-family residential, 6,000 square foot minimum lots.
It's hard to go against our own general plan.
Yeah, and the unanimous recommendation of the planning commission. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the zone change request Z-14-08, which will change the present zone from open space to R-16.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that with the thought that it should also provide some affordable housing to maybe some people that could really use it in that neighborhood. So I'll second.
Nice and I.
Staley, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, that passes. We want to move on, or do you want to excuse?
I'd say let's keep moving on.
Okay. Item E, is that what we're going to? Yeah. Item E, public hearing for consideration to approve an ordinance adopting the Washington City Public Safety Capital Facility Plan Impact Fee.
Mayor, as we start this one, maybe Stephen from Sunrise can talk about, we've been in discussions also with Suba on a couple of their issues, and I think it'd be important that he point those out, those changes, especially in light of the fact that this is a public hearing, and so
okay.
I might be interested.
Steve Hall, Sunrise Engineering. Just really quick, we had a conversation since our last city council meeting with one of Suba's consultants, and we worked out all the issues that we had, and those were first on the fire apparatus, not being able to be charged for residential impact fees. So we have taken that out of the analysis for residential. The other being change in methodology, convert from square footage to ERUs. So now we're using the ERU base for that. And so those changes essentially, now the proposed maximum impact fee eligible amount would be $385 per household for residents and 24 cents per square foot for non-residential areas, non-residential units. Any questions on the changes that we have?
One of the biggest reasons that was impacted dramatically was the adjustment on the apparatus. Right. So basically what that means is about 80% of that was not impact fee eligible, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Which means that if we buy a piece of apparatus, that would have to come in out of non-impact fee funds.
Only like 20% of it would come from.
So that's why it impacted so much.
So that reduced it?
It did.
Because we
It
pulled
reduced it
out
by
that.
almost $200 because it was so significant.
About 180, yeah.
100, yeah.
Yep. And some of that was from the apparatus, and a smaller other portion was because of the other change we made.
Have there been any other objections or questions that need to be resolved, or I think we've kind of worked this one over pretty good?
I think we seem to be on the same page with their consultant in our conversation with them.
I think so, and I think it's been a good good experience with Suba and their consultant working it through, and we appreciate their help on this.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, again, it's a public hearing. Anybody? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I'll motion that we close the public hearing.
Motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Turek, aye.
Segmiller, aye.
Nice and I.
Okay. That's approved. Item F, consideration to approve the ordinance adopting the Washington City Public Safety Capital Facility Plan impact fee. Sure.
A letter to City Council from City Manager Roger Carter talking about option 1 and option 2. And if we want to keep revenue neutral, we can opt to take some out of the park impact fees. Pick that up. I don't know if anybody's thought of it. I personally would like to keep Washington competitive on our impact fees to encourage growth and development here. And if that means taking a little out of the park impact fee, I would prefer that option.
And how I probably would recommend we address that, it now is a $185 difference that would come out because we already have a current $200 impact fee, which is part of this $385. So it's now would be an increase of $185 or subsidized $185. How I'd recommend we address that then is the capital facilities plan of the park is being done now. Of course, that can be addressed at that point if the council says this is our intention, then we'll address it when the park is done.
Any other questions? Want to entertain a motion?
Real quick before a motion, I'm sorry.
No, it's all
I
right.
had to leave for just a quick sec. I'm guessing that option 2 is something that we're looking at, or is that something that, did you just explain
Yeah, it's
when that
option
would be
2.
addressed?
I can't remember my
Option 2
options.
would be that we relook at the park impact fee.
Yes, and so my
that
recommendation-
it's a net.
Yeah, so my recommendation is you do have the capital facilities plan for the park coming in the next few months, and you can put that in your motion, but then when that time comes, that's when you do the adjustment. So you accept this fee, but then recognize that would have to be adjusted at that time.
So would both take effect after the park, or would we have
Yeah,
a
this
short
actually
period
has
of
a
time
60
to
day.
where?
This wouldn't even begin to take effect until late November, I believe, because of the requirement. So, I mean, other than that, we'll have to bring the impact.
It would just be nice for them both to take effect at the same time.
Yeah, it probably won't happen exactly at the same time, just because of the timetable of this and the timetable of the public process of the park. But, I mean, you can always bring the impact fee schedule back from the park at any time. I was just saying that there's also a capital facilities going on there. So,
So I know that I've had a few questions on this, and I'm liking option 2. Your notes mentioned that we'd be at a deficit, but it's at a deficit of the proposed higher park acreage.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be at a deficit on our current park acreage or kind of our current standard.
and I don't know if I follow that exactly, but what I wanted to point out there is that based upon the previous capital facility plan for the parks, it would create an additional deficit if you reduced it in what the capital facility plan anticipated to have as revenue for parks. And I tried to quantify that there. That's what I tried to do there. I just thought it was fair to point that out. The reality is also the current capital facilities plan for the park also already runs a deficit because the council chose the lowest impact fee to impose when that impact fee was set. So I mean, it's already got a deficit that it runs, and when I say deficit, we have a standard of 6 acres per thousand. It's running a deficit with respect to that just because of the simple fact that we didn't impose the fee that would amount to that. By reducing, and at the time we were looking at the difference of $200 to $585, I think, or 5 something or other. I think I did my calculations based upon that larger number, which has now been reduced, and then calculated that here's how much additional loss you would see in the, as best I could, loss you would see in the park capital facilities plan. That number would actually be less than that now because we've cut that down, and I didn't redo the number.
Yeah, I think you're showing 163 to 182, but it'd be about half that.
Probably so. So I guess my point is we're not in a position really to adjust the park tonight, and that would take its own process to do. But that's something that if you approve the ordinance, then, which we would certainly recommend, so that we can at least begin the posting process at that point and the preparation process with that.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve an ordinance adopting the Washington City Public Safety Capital Facility Plan, an impact fee, and obviously then at the time we get to the parks, make certain we consider whether we want to stay road and control.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Nice and I.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Sigmiller, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, item 8. I move that we have an adjournment. Anyone want to make that motion?
Don't we need?
Do we have one more?
You may want to do is,
You need to go to
you
your,
need to continue the public hearing.
yeah, you go.
Oh,
to
which one?
C and D.
Oh, CD, I apologize. No, let's move forward. Item C, public hearing for consideration to approve an ordinance adopting Washington City Transportation Capital Facilities Master Plan and Transportation Impact Fee. Excuse me, Mike, I apologize on that.
I'm sorry, Mayor, did you say continue the public hearing?
No, we're going
We're
to
gonna have
move
a
forward.
hearing.
Mayor, Council, we started our transportation impact fee master plan and impact fee study, I think, back in February. We hired Horrocks Engineering as our consultant on the project. Aaron Baker with Horrocks is here, and he'll give a real brief overview of our study.
Aaron Baker with Horrocks Engineers. Thank you, Mayor. I will summarize this rather quickly because of your time constraints. The purpose of the study is to update the April of 2010 master study that was done at that time. And what essentially we did, it kind of took several elements to do. We updated the socioeconomic data, primarily population and employment, that's part of that. Updated the road master plan and developed transportation scenarios for 2020 and 2040. And the way that we did that is we took that data and used the Dixie Metropolitan Planning Organization's traffic model, which is a region-wide model, and Washington, of course, is part of the region. From that, we updated the facilities plan, and from this master plan, we were then able to move ahead and prepare the impact study. In the improvement plan, we removed several projects that Washington City has completed in the past 4 years, and we added several projects in the short-term plan as well as the long-term plan. So there's about 11 or 12 total that are now new to the plan. With those new projects and the estimates from those projects, we were then able to go toward an impact fee. We took the list of projects from the Transportation Master Plan and the history and the trend of the building permits from 2011 to 2013 for residential, 2004 to 2005 for commercial. We also updated the trip generation rates for each land use based on a national guideline with the Institute of Transportation Engineers guideline that most communities use. And so updating those, the summary is the cost of recommended impact fee increases from $2,670 per single family unit to $3,435, an increase of 29%. And Mayor, that's the summary of what we've done.
I guess I liked your letter where it says that it would result in a reduction of 29%.
No, it's sort of, no, it's an increase of 29.
Any questions or comments on that?
I wonder if it wouldn't hurt just for the public's perception to maybe just hit those projects that were new that came on to the list, just for the public's.
From the short-term plan, Washington Fields Road, phases 4A and 4B, that section 4 hasn't been touched yet in the past few years, so it's phase 4's turn. Milepost 10 concept study, which is essentially being wrapped up right now. Milepost 11 concept study, which is the interchange study that is being performed currently. 3650 south from the city limit to Southern Parkway. A lot of development pressure in that area, so that is on the short-term list. Southern Parkway, of course, that's currently being constructed and very active road right now. Merrill Road and the Walmart Home Depot connection to St. George. It's a connector road between those two businesses that go down into St. George. Those are new ones on the short-term plan. On the long-term plan, these are new ones to reach that. And long-term essentially is the 10 to 20 year time frame. Washington Fields Road phases 5B, 6B, and 7. So pretty much widening the current or the phases that have been put out there for 5 and 6. And then 7 heads out towards the airport. South Frontage Road, frontage road to I-15 on the south side. The Tortoise Rock Road, which is on the north side of I-15. I-15 Milepost 11 interchange is also now on the long-term plan, and this needs to be on the long-term plan in order to receive funding in the near future through the MPO and how the state and federal government
Is it on our
gives
current
funds.
plan? Is that on our current plan?
It will be when you approve
On
this.
our current plan? No, now.
No,
not
it's
now.
not.
Okay. Who came up with the name Tortoise Rock Road?
Turn to Lester on that one.
Seems like-
Where'd that
is
name come
yours-
from?
Is that your idea, Lester?
Was it Sitla?
Seems
Sitla
like
name.
an unfortunate name.
That name could easily be changed by this group, of course. I-15 Milepost 11 interchange is there's a lot of momentum on that project, as you may know. So
On which project?
on the Milepost 11 interchange, there's a lot of folks interested from the state level and even higher in the federal highway level. So, and the last one in the long term is Washington Dam Road from 1900 East to the city limits to the east.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Again, this is a public hearing.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Mari Smith, Executive Officer with the Southern Utah Home Builders Association. And I appreciate the opportunity to make a comment today. And by the way, on the public safety, I just want to say thank you for working with us. It's been great, and I think working together, we'll have an overall better study and more thorough analysis done. So thank you for that. But regarding transportation, we did just had the opportunity to review it in detail, and I did submit comments today to Roger and to Mayor Nielsen. Reviewing these studies do take long, it's quite lengthy to review those, and so there was 3 options proposed, either the 34% increase or 29% increase or 8% decrease in the transportation fees. And so, of course, representing the building industry, if you were to consider the 8% decrease, then we would be in support of that. But to propose a 29% increase, there are specific questions that we submitted that we have concerns on the study. I know there hasn't been time to address these concerns, and so we would like to recommend that you postpone voting on this today until our concerns can be addressed. I'm not sure if you're aware if you received those items that we submitted. So.
I didn't see those in my email.
Okay.
But I think personally, I'd like to read the concern
Yeah.
from the Home Builders Association and see
Yeah.
what those are and weigh those against the needs of our
Mhm.
city and our roads specifically.
Right. And I just want to mention generally, the building industry professionals are more than willing to pay impact fees when they're fair and justified. We just have to be concerned, like Ron mentioned, Washington City is one of the the cities with the highest impact fees overall. And so when we see that they're willing to propose 29% increase, and I know there are certain things that are needed and justified, but maybe some of those improvements can hold off for a while, or there might be other ways of generating this income besides impact fees. Because as we know, these impact fees are put onto the price of the home. That affects housing affordability, and that impacts growth. If you keep the fees low and the home prices are affordable, then it's going to spur growth. So, and I did notice, building permits for Washington City, they're considerably lower compared to this time last year. I think it's about 40%, according to Construction Monitor. So we just feel that if you keep impact fees low, it's going to spur growth, and we'll keep those houses affordable. So
The biggest problem is just what you're talking about. You spur growth, we have to have roads to accommodate the
absolutely,
growth.
and
It's
absolutely,
the horse and the buggy.
absolutely,
theory of
and
how
that's
you
why
do
we
that,
said,
so.
Absolutely, the building industry. We live in a beautiful area because of the building industry and because of our growth. All that needed infrastructure. So I think there's a good balance. When we see a 29% increase, that's significant. And so there might be other options available.
One of the things I'd point out with the percentage, and Mari and I have talked about this, is if a capital facilities plan is done accurately and the pricing is done accurately, then a price will come out from that. If the council chooses to fund something less than that, then the next time the same study is done showing the same things, you're going to see a greater percentage difference between what your fee was before and the new fee. And that's what we found with the transportation plan. I only point that out because that is a big percentage number, but there's a reason behind that.
Well, and some of these projects we're looking at are significantly more costly, like our milepost 11 interchange. When we start talking of building an interchange versus a frontage road, certainly your dollar costs explode exponentially very quickly. And so some of it is the type of projects we're doing versus the types of projects we were looking at last time, which were more connector roads and those types of things. So, and that comes with the growth of in certain areas that suddenly say, look, we can't this interchange cannot accommodate the continued growth on it. We've got to find another interchange here. So, hence, it's because of the growth and the impact of new homes that then causes more expense down the road. And so, it is, like I said, it's a horse buggy thing.
Right. And absolutely. And when we have those new interchanges, existing developments are actually going to utilize that road too. So should 100% of new growth pay for that, or should some of the existing users, help pay for that?
The new growth that comes in is what causes the over impact of those. So they begin to fail at that point, which then has us have the need to go build new ones. And so in reality, if you want to get to it, the whole cost of the new interchange comes at the expense of growth, period.
Yeah, there are specific roads listed in the study, that existing development is utilizing those roads, but yet 100% of the new growth is being charged for that. And those were submitted in the questions I had. And so I just wanted to make you aware of that. But I really appreciate each one of you. You have a difficult job. This isn't easy, and it's good to agree to disagree and find a good balance. So just appreciate it, all of you.
Any other questions for Mari? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any others?
Maybe we should look at zonal impact fees for roads. It all might balance back out
Just
again.
took the wind out of Jim's sail right there.
No opposition to it. Just a question. I'm making an assumption that the long-term and the short-term plans are included in the impact fee.
Come on up so we put it on the record of what you're explaining.
All the short term are included, and all the midterm from 5 to 10 years are included, but not the long term from 10 to 20.
None of those are in the impact. Correct. And then I guess I have a concern because I think knowing some things that are coming down the road, which that's not common knowledge. Washington Fields Road, for instance, is not being funded, but 3650 is being funded. And there's an interchange to Southern Parkway and Washington Field Dam Road, but there's not an interchange at 3650. So we're funding a road to the Southern Parkway without an interchange, but we're not funding a road to the Southern Parkway that has an interchange, and that's a concern I have. It's not that I have any problem with the cost or the thing, it's just how they're prioritized. If they're all in the capital facilities plan and they can be moved around with staff, I'm fine. But if we don't have, for instance, Washington Dam Road in, but we're funding short-term of 3650, there's no interchange in 3650 or plans to build an interchange.
I believe those are all designated, on the map that I looked at,
Yeah.
they were all prioritized 0 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years.
I haven't seen the study.
But
so
I
it's
want to
more
look at, you bring up a good point, so
Yeah.
I do want to see where exactly on the map, on the study that connection to the southern corridor is. So bear with me, my iPad's just not as fast.
Maybe Mike can answer that in short order.
Yeah, so that's my only, no objections, just the priority thing. If they're all funded, it doesn't really matter. But if the long-term ones aren't funded, I'm concerned that Washington Dam Road is not prioritized properly.
I see in the 11 to 20 year improvements, line number 25, Washington Dam Road from 1900 east to the east city limits at an estimated cost of $3,243,000. So I think that's the road you're talking about. It's in the 11 to 20 year.
Is it that one or is it
horizon.
further south?
Can't really read the numbers on these, but this is the map that's in the study that actually shows all the projects and which of the funding years that they're in.
That's the map.
So
is it?
That would be the 10 to 20 year.
So with that being said, going back to the study, that's not figured in as part of the impact fee.
Well, it would be if you went with the option number 1, which is the higher fee, which would
correct.
include all the projects up to the
one
20
that
year.
that's being proposed, suggested by staff, it would not be funded in.
Can you point to that one? Where exactly these were?
Interchange.
That's out where Washington Dam Road connects to the
So
southern
that's
parkway.
actually 3650 connection.
Oh, okay, that's 3650 connection. I thought we were talking Washington Dam Road.
Now, also, just information purposes only, any of these projects that were like Milepost 11, in it, there's a 0 impact fee on that, where we're anticipating federal funds for the construction of that. Now, getting to that point, and that's a conversation we have to have with council here in the near future, is what investment do we want to put into the new Exit 11 will determine on how fast that actually constructs.
But what about also with that, all your costs associated with getting it to federal funds? Do they, when they finally fund that, do they reimburse us for that?
No.
So those costs should be figured
Until we actually get the approval through the process, any funds that we expend on this would not be contributing funds. So, we're almost to that point now. We're right to the point where we could actually start into the environmental process on this, which I think once we hit that point, we're going to get a PIN number with UDOT, and I think that at that point that triggers to any funds we put in will be participating funds.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any other questions? Again, this is a public hearing. Any other comments out there? Questions from the council?
Mayor, I'll move that we close the public hearing.
I have a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Nice night.
Sherman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Second, Miller, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move to item D, consideration to approve an ordinance adopting the Washington City Transportation Master Plan and Transportation Impact Fee.
Mayor, just in case we need to clarify that, because I thought part of what we were thinking of doing was to get a chance to listen, to take a look at what Suba had concerns on. If they have, my guess is they're going to have either more, specific comment to it, and also doesn't give the council a chance to actually ask more questions, take more input from the public. Because if anything that's new, you may want to have more discussion. Point is, you may want to continue the public hearing as opposed to closing that public hearing.
And I have a question also, Mayor, on table 5 of the impact fee plan report. It lists the 3 alternatives. So we've talked about the middle one, the second one, which would fund all of the 0 to 5 year projects and then all of the 6 to 10 year projects. And the city's responsibility comes in at 29 million, which would be an impact fee of 3,435. My question is, the next step up will fund twice as much money at maybe $130 more impact fee. What am I missing, or why don't I understand in that calculation that the relationship seems?
The number of permits that would come in that period of time.
Okay. So we're calculating in a bunch of permits in that.
Yeah, you get basically doubling.
10 more years.
10 more years of it.
I see.
Assuming we'll keep that number of permits, depending on the impact fees across the board that we.
Well, but if they
that
don't,
we
you don't
choose.
need the infrastructure. So.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Well, I might push those projects out, but you reevaluate that each time you do a capital facilities analysis.
Now, we hit on a key thing earlier in the meeting. Our past 2 transportation studies, council has picked the lower fee that was proposed in the last 2. So we're really kind of playing catch up. And I don't know how long we can afford to keep playing catch up. I mean, roads are just such an expensive item for us to build. Just to give you an example, when we did the 300 East project from Telegraph Street to the bridge, including the bridge, was a $13 million project for 1.2 miles of road. The bridge wasn't the expensive part of the project. That was relatively inexpensive. It's just very expensive to build roads anymore.
I don't think we can keep delaying, because sooner or later, then the impact fee will be signed, nobody will build.
Yeah, that's what happens. Is
Now, I've been through all the project sheets, and I'll actually have to go back and double check, but I believe that none of the existing roads were taking into account that existing asphalt and charging that to impact fees. Only the widening portion of those roads have gone to the impact fee. So we're very careful in our breakdown of the cost that only the improvements we need for additional growth has been added into the impact fee calculations, but I will actually double check and go back through that.
Guess I kind of like what City Attorney
Yeah.
Starkey recommended, is we keep it open as a public meeting, get this data in, everybody look at it, then digest Suba's report, and then hopefully have it fine-tuned.
Yeah, so Mayor, you might just want to ask for,
That's-
another motion.
yeah, I'll go
Another
ahead and
motion?
Make the
Okay.
motion that we rescind the last motion of closing that public hearing, and we'll just continue that public hearing until our next meeting, which is going to be, 4 weeks, I think, because
4 weeks out.
I don't think we meet in 2 weeks because of the league, so it's going to be a month from now. What is the date on that? Do we need to be date specific?
If we can, it'd be nice.
24th.
So we'll continue that hearing until September 24th, 2014.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second.
Nice night.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Turek, aye.
Okay. Very good.
So given that, if your next item is going to be consideration of the
So the next item
ordinance,
would
then you
be,
just continue that
okay.
to follow.
Well, let's make let's have a motion on that too.
Mayor, I'll motion that we continue the consideration to approve the ordinance adopting the Washington City Transportation Master Plan to the same date that the public hearing has been continued to.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Go ahead.
Nice night.
Truman, aye.
Staley, aye.
Segment, all right.
Turek, aye.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item of business is adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Nice night.
Truman, aye.
Segment, all right.
Turek, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Y'all have a good evening.